change a little bit, Baker, because it is going to be untimed rounds in the top 8 now.
Yeah, going to allow these players as much time as they need to bring these games to the full conclusions. But yeah, I did have a little break, but I caught some of that last game. Looked like a real nail-biter, a lot of really important digs for the Lucky Dime, which seemed to be the finisher for that final match. So it looked a lot of fun.
I have to say, both games that I've cast so far today have been absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
I've really enjoyed seeing both in Bucky, Emerald Steel,
two different matchups,
and it's just been absolutely brilliant. Now, I have not yet seen all of the packs.
Yes.
Which somehow you two got to open all the packs, which I'm feeling a little bit left out by.
That is fair, but are you going to complain that you got a Diablo?
No. I mean, I think this is it, right? I've opened a lot of packs. I've never got a Diablo, but brilliant. You guys open for me, and I get one. So that's the one card I know.
Perfect. I'm glad you got one.
We're building 40 card decks from this. I picked Amber and Emerald. I was off camera, but I was thinking what was left. Ross had Ruby. I had Emerald. I didn't really want to go Emerald Sapphire and leave Ross with Ruby Amber, so I thought I'd give Ross Ruby Sapphire, and I'll take Emerald Amber. So my thought before looking at all the cards, I'm looking for something a little bit aggressive.
Yeah, of course.
Also, but like lots of questing power, potentially though as well, maybe some discard synergies in there as well. So Diablo, I think I'm going to put this one in my deck. I've got a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's probably a given right there.
Bruno's Return is not a card I would really consider playing in Core Constructed, but definitely in Draft it could be an interesting option. So return a character card from your discard to your hand and remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. Putting a card from my discard into my hand is going to allow me to refill maybe potentially with a Diablo.
Especially since it's only a one-off, you may want to recycle that.
I think I'm going to put this in like the middle pile. It's not a definite. Record Player, I do like it. I don't think it's going to be a card I have enough synergy with. I'm looking for some more card draw. I'm going to put that in the no pile.
Maybe if you had some stitches, but no, probably not for today.
Ursula Vanessa, I don't have access to any shift Ursulas. In Emerald and Amber, there's not really any 4-cost songs which come to mind, but obviously 3-cost songs, I can't have Mother Knows Best in Ursula's Return. I think she's also not going to make the cut, but I'm going to put her in the maybe.
I will remind you, there is a Floodborn for her. There is the, this is the Vanessa one, yeah, there is the Eric's Bride.
Oh, that's true, there's Eric's Bride.
Which has a built-in bare necessities.
Okay.
So you need to see if you've got that.
That is very much a maybe.
If you've got that, I think it's worth it.
Daisy Tuck in the foil.
You like Daisy, don't you?
That is a definite. I'm putting her in the deck above Diablo. That's how much I like this card.
Oh, what a statement.
Julieta Madrigal is the little bit of card draw I'm looking for.
Yep.
She's going to be in the deck.
I think that's a cert.
Mirabelle Madrigal, 2/2 with support. She's a maybe, I think.
Maybe, I think that's fair.
Atlantica, I don't think so. Not enough synergy here, not going to draw me cards. Another Mirabelle, this one in the starter deck. Very interesting option. She has support. Whenever this character quests, your other Madrigal characters get +1. I do already have the Julieta.
That's true.
In the maybe, I already have the Mirabelle. She quests for 2 with support. It is uninkable. I think it's probably going to make the cut. I'm going to put it in the maybe.
Yeah.
First Aid is a no, unfortunately. I'm not too interested in that one. Who needs a gift when they're having this much fun? Felix, 2/4, quest for 2. Honestly, it's pretty good.
Yeah, if you want to build like an aggressive deck, you've got some lemon and lime aggro going on here.
I have so many. Okay, I have so many Madrigals. I'm putting them all in the deck.
Yeah.
All in the deck, and I'm also gonna definitely put this Mirabelle Madrigal in the deck. Whenever this character quests, your other Madrigal characters get +1 lore this turn. That could be huge.
Yep, could be game winning.
Every card which is a Madrigal's in the deck. Speaking of quick questing, Donald Duck. I'm liking my deck so far. The Musketeer Soldier has Bodyguard, but when I play it, another one of my characters gets +1 lore this turn. A little bit like a goat, but in Amber.
I like that one.
It's in the deck. Another Ursula Vanessa, will put it in the maybe. The Golden Harp is unfortunately a no. The Stitch, maybe if I need it, probably not looking for it. We're going to come back to this because we do have the bracket available.
Excellent.
Here's the metagame to start off with, and then we're going to look at the bracket. You can see that the Emerald Steel was the most popular deck in the top 64. Ruby Amethyst, Sapphire Steel, though, is still making it into the top 8 as well.
Yep, plenty of decks that were represented here across the course of the weekend. That Amethyst Emerald even, or EA Tempo as it's known among the community, with a little bit of representation. Only 2 Amber Steel decks making it into the top cut. A little bit of a surprise actually, because I think it was performing really well across Friday and Saturday. And yeah, but 2 is better than none. It could go all the way. In Lille, I believe it was only 1 Steel Amber deck that made the top 64. I may be wrong about that, but Frank Carsten took it all the way to the very end. And of course, just after your own heart, we watched them for the first game of today. That Amethyst Steel deck still going strong.
Well, it did get knocked out, unfortunately, Baker. This is just the top 64 here. We're not quite seeing the bracket.
Oh, I apologize.
It did do a really good job, though, but unfortunately, it was taken out in a very, very tight top 64 matchup.
There's my wishful thinking.
Steel. It would have been nice, but the Emerald Steel player had other ideas in mind. I think we're going to take a look now, though, Baker, at the updated bracket.
Excellent.
The Cinderella bracket. It's going to be a Ruby Amethyst mirror match, and we are going to be watching this on the stream. Thea Time taking down Emerald Steel, and the final Ruby Sapphire deck has been taken out, it seems like. It says...
Yeah, I can see we've got 2 Ruby logos there. We've got... Okay, so we do have... It is Ruby Sapphire over here that I've got.
Yeah, we're gonna double check exactly what's happening there, and we'll let you know exactly what the matchup is. I don't think it's possible that it's Ruby Ruby. Is it a Ruby Sapphire?
Yeah, it's Ruby Sapphire versus Ruby Amethyst.
Ruby Sapphire still in the tournament.
Yeah.
That is amazing to see, Baker. I thought Ruby Sapphire was knocked out, but no. Thea Rodriguez up against Thea Time. It's going to be Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst as the streamed game. The players are taking their seats, and I am so excited to see Ruby Sapphire in action for the first time today.
And I've just noted that one of our players, they're not going to be playing with it. They put their Rapunzel Gifted with Healing full playmat down onto the table. I think they were looking forward to using that, but no, we are going to use our Lorcana mats that's already in the middle of the board. But I popped out to watch a couple of games during that break, and a lot of the players had already switched over to that Rapunzel playmat. Definitely looking to utilise that, when I don't blame them at all. Moving on to our next bracket, we have the Elsa bracket. Obviously, it's been a grueling competition for these players, but in the quarterfinals, we have Luca, who's going to be representing Ruby Amethyst up against Hadrian with that Emerald Steel discard deck, still going strong.
Yeah, that is incredible. In the Elsa bracket here, bear in mind all of these brackets are just combining into one.
Of course.
After the semi-finals. I mean, it's one tournament. It's just a nice way of displaying it and seeing it all very, very clearly. Luca is just in an absolute sea of Emerald Steel in what's considered an unfavored matchup for Ruby Amethyst. But clearly Luca has the tools necessary to do the business. They've beaten Emerald Steel not once but twice, and they're going to be looking to do it a 3rd time, this time up against Hadrian, who's had Emerald Steel mirrors all day so far.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a player that clearly knows how to pilot that Ruby Amethyst matchup, making their way through a sea of them. Can they do it one more time and take down Hadrian to move on to the next round, or will the Emerald Steel player progress even further? And we move into our Maleficent bracket. Another very long, grueling day of Lorcana. In the quarterfinals, we've got Ruben representing that Ruby Amethyst that we watched a little earlier, and Dezenon. I might be saying that wrong, I apologize. Also on that Emerald Steel, probably the most played matchup of the day, especially since Emerald Steel and Ruby Amethyst were the most represented in top 64.
Yeah, Clement from France. They won the Ruby Amethyst mirror in the first round, in the final finisher of the first round. It was a long one, but then taken out by Emerald Steel. And I've been speaking, again, I must confess, not sure on the pronunciation, but our Emerald Steel player in the quarterfinals, Jaznan, really, really lovely gentleman, really good vibes. Dressed in a really nice outfit as well. Looking pretty fresh as they're playing, looking pretty confident.
I like it.
And
win with style, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Too right.
And we're we're going to move into the final bracket, our Rapunzel bracket. In the quarterfinals, we have Manuel also on that Emerald Steel. The squirrels everywhere, Joe, absolutely everywhere. But they're going to be taking on, is this our lone Sapphire Steel deck still in the competition?
Yeah, I think so. Justin, who we just saw take down Jerome in an absolute nail-biter. And it is, in fact, another Emerald Steel matchup, as I predicted for Justin, of course. Definitely Emerald Steel the favorite up against Ruby Amethyst, so Manuel was successful in taking down Andre, and Justin's going to be really happy. The third game of the day, the third Emerald Steel. It's a great matchup on paper for Justin.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Justin's going to be feeling pretty confident going into this match. Doesn't mean it's a foregone conclusion by any means. Manuel could absolutely find a path to victory, but Sapphire Steel definitely favoured in that Bucky matchup. But it is worth mentioning, of course, these players want to progress. They want to go all the way. They want to be the champion, but they've got to be feeling at least a little relief that they have secured that Mickey Mouse brave little Taylor.
Most certainly. I really want to see what else I've got.
You want to finish your deck, I can tell.
I've got Prince Eric Bodyguard. I'm pretty sure he's going to make the cut, especially in foil. It'll be rude not to.
Yep.
I've got Mickey Mouse, supporter of the band. I don't think so, but it's going in the maybe pile. Record player, I don't think so, unfortunately.
You've decided that's a no.
Prince Eric, I'll put in the maybe on this one. I do have a Shift Prince Eric Floodborn here. Not a card I've ever played before. 5 strength, 5 willpower, quest for 2. And if you have a bodyguard named, if you have a character named Ursula in play, this character gains bodyguard. So maybe some synergy there with my Ursula Vanessa. I'm going to put it in the maybe. I have Max, the loyal sheepdog.
If you're going to play Eric.
Honestly.
That's not bad if you're going to play Eric.
If you have a character named Prince Eric in play, you pay 1 less. That does sound like some pretty good synergy. I have a bunch of Prince Erics.
It's a pretty cheap beat stick.
I'm putting them in. I'm putting Max in. 4-3 stat line in a draft format is going to be really good. A lot of board control that is going to be able to provide. Look at this family. That is such an interesting option. Being able to draw 2 cards. It's Singer 7 though, and it is going to be pretty difficult to get to that. But I do have Ursula Vanessa. 2 Ursula Vanessas. Look at this family. Definitely a serious option. It's going in the maybe. I've got a Madrigal. He's in the deck, Augustine. Lost in the
Well, if you play
woods
Madrigal, you have to play Look at This Family, man. It's part of the package.
It's in. Another Prince Eric, I think it's got to go. There is the Ursula you mentioned. Oh, I've got so many good cards.
You do have some synergy here. I like it. And this Look at This Family, to be fair, if you play Ursula Vanessa on 2 with Singer 4 and then a 3 cost, you could sing it on turn 4. So that is a nice line that could lead you to victory.
I'm worried that I'm going to have too many cards in my deck at this point, Baker. I've not even started on the Emerald cards. Cogsworth, I don't think is going to make it, unfortunately, for that reason. Pluto, he has got a good stat line, but again, I've got so many cards already in my deck. I think he's going to be a bit too expensive. Prince Eric seems like a nice one. Daisy Duck, I love. Atlantica, I'm not going to go for. The 1-cost Daisy Duck is a maybe. The Augustine Madrigal is a definite. Aerial Singer 7, Look at This Family.
Oh, is that tempting you?
That is tempting. That is very tempting. I'm going to say maybe.
See if you've got any other songs first.
Cogsworth, I'll say no. Maybe, though. Cogsworth is quite good. Daisy Duck is in the deck. Goofy Musketeer Swordsman. Whenever you play a character with bodyguard, ready this character at Conquest. I do have a lot of bodyguards.
You do. You've got those Prince Erics, so some synergy.
Sign the Scroll, I'm going to say no to. Pluto's a maybe. Bruno's Return a maybe. Stitch are probably a no at this point. Felix Madrigal in the deck. Max is a yes. Gaston.
Oh, that's a good card. That's going to help you play characters
cheap. In my one
cheap.
draft I played before, I had a Gaston, and it didn't do that much work for me. But I think I've got to play it.
Yeah, I think so. I would.
First Aid is a no, and I'm now on to the Emerald cards. But we're going to save that for a rainy day because the players are sat down. They're analysing each other's deck lists.
Indeed.
And we can take a look at them now, Baker. While I've been doing that, Baker's been very kindly taking a deeper look at the list.
Yes, mate. I would love to talk a little bit about this Ruby Sapphire deck because there's one card that's particularly spicy that jumps out at me. We are running Hercules, Daring Demigod, who is that 5-cost uninkable 7-3 with Rush and Reckless. Very similar to the Maui Hero to All, Castle, who is undoubtedly one of the best cards in the game. Really necessary, so strong, really helps you out with locations. However, we mentioned a lot in my last game casting with Ross that Maui doesn't quite have enough to be able to deal with the Queen's Castle, whereas Hercules already has that 7 strength. And you may be thinking, well, yeah, but he's uninkable.
Wow.
He's got less willpower. Why would I play it? Because you're running Sapphire and you can ink your uninkables with Fishbone Quill. You hope to get to a nice high ink count nonetheless. And we're only playing 3 copies of Maui. So we have gone for that 3-2 split, really prioritizing wanting to be able to deal with that Queen's Castle.
So interesting, almost unheard of. 3 copies of Maui, 2 copies of Hercules. Ross has just looked at me. What did you just say? 3 copies of Maui, that's it? That is pretty extraordinary. Ice block ×2, Baker, you've just been pointing to there. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so again, a really powerful card. There's 1 cost uninkable item that can choose a character and lower its strength by 1. Of course, this helps with all sorts of just challenging, but I'm sure Sisu is in there.
Yep. 2 copies of...
The empowered sibling, I think, is
3 copies of the big Sisu.
Yep.
2 copies as well of a 3-cost Sisu. I do believe it's the inkable one.
It is the Emboldened Warrior that gains strength based on the opponent's hand. So.
And that's also going to be another card that's really good at dealing with Queen's Castle. Ruby Sapphire, this is the only Ruby Sapphire player left. We know that there is a lot of Ruby Amethyst in this tournament, and this is a deck teched to be better in that matchup. The Hercules, the Sisus, that Vitalosphere as well, even a couple copies of McDuck Manor, which is really nice to see as well.
Yeah, super interesting. It was a card that was really popular in set 3 in the Sapphire Steel decks. Big, bulky, 9 willpower, 2 passive lore gain, and it has fallen off a little bit in this set, but this player clearly seeing the benefit from running a location like that. If your opponent can't answer it, it's going to generate an awful lot of lore. And yeah, as you said, this Vitalosphere as an extra 1-drop item, obviously this is the deck that really prioritizes these items with the synergy with Tamatoa, who gets an additional lore based on every item on the field. Of course, we've got Flavisham, the toy maker, our main draw engine, who wants to remove these items. So Vitalosphere, an extra 1-drop item, but also it's pretty useful in and of itself. You can banish it. I think it's pay 2. It's pay 1 or 2, and you give 1 character rush and +2 strength, which is another way of getting up to those higher numbers that we need for things like Queen's Castle, or maybe for the mirror for opposing Tamatoas and things like that.
Absolutely.
So this looks like a really good deck list. We've got 2 Lucky Dime, 2 How Far I'll Go. We're on 3 copies of Be Prepared. Everything else pretty standard. 4 Maleficent, 4 Tamatoa, 3 copies of Madame Medusa. There are no Lady Tremaine in here, which is perfectly fine, but just making that clear in case anyone was wondering if that will come down. It certainly won't, but I'm sure that's in the other deck list, is it?
Well, before that, I was speaking with Jan Moy yesterday, who was also playing Ruby Sapphire. They're, of course, on home turf here in Germany. They didn't make the top cut. They were also playing Ruby Sapphire, and they really said to me, one card they were particularly impressed with in their deck for this matchup was the Vitalosphere. You can play the Tamatoa down for 8, get the Vitalosphere back, put it back down on the board, give your own Tamatoa rush and enough strength to remove the Queen's Castle in a single swoop.
So this deck list has a lot of ways of dealing with that castle, clearly respecting how powerful a card it was, and that has absolutely been represented over the weekend. The amount of games that we've been saying this Queen's Castle is what is going to get them to game. So I really respect the decision to just really make sure we've got lots of options to remove that castle as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I've been looking through the Ruby Amethyst deck list. These lists are pretty tight, and the players are now shuffling their decks, ready to get started.
I'm ready, Joe. I'm ready.
Switch over to that view, but I'll tell you a little bit about this Ruby
I'd love to hear it.
deck. There's 3 copies of Bee King Undisputed, 2 copies of Peter Pan Shadowfinder, which is not going to be great in this particular matchup, but is certainly going to help deal with Diablos elsewhere. 3 copies of Madame Medusa. How many copies of Tremaine do you reckon, Baker? Make a prediction.
So I like 2, but I bet they're playing 1.
Zero copies of Lady Tremaine.
Okay.
And it is open deck lists, so that is information that their opponent is aware of. I think instead of those Tremaines, fitting in room for that Peter Pan Shadow Finder to improve the Diablo-Bucky matchup.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fine. I do respect it. I do like the Tremaine. It's an additional body that has that 2 willpower, and I've got a respectable stat line, and she can sing songs, but we are doing the same job with B King Undisputed. So I think that's a perfectly good call. And yes, this Peter Pan Shadow Finder, as you said, Joe, probably not going to be the most useful in this match, but if they're able to progress and they end up against more Bucky and Diablo, or Diablo specifically, then it will certainly help out with that. And they've made it all the way to top 8. This Peter Pan Shadow Finder clearly has done some work over the weekend.
Yep, you can say that again. Another nice thing about Pan Shadow Finder, it is evasive, it does have rush, and being a 3-cost character, it's a great option to sing Friends on the other side with.
Yeah, fantastic. Only 3 copies of One Jump Ahead I'm just noticing in this Ruby Sapphire deck, which I think is fine. It's quite an important piece a lot of the time, wanting to almost skip to your turn 3. Well, sorry, to your turn 4, should I say. You One Jump Ahead on turn 2, which puts you to 3 ink, and then on turn 3 you ink to 4, and then you get that nice early Flavisham. But the game has begun. We see an ink and Chernobog's followers down onto the field, courtesy of our Ruby Amethyst player. Theo is going to ink Maleficent, and no play on the left-hand side of the table.
Yeah, for Theo, it's not too uncommon as the Ruby Sapphire player to be missing the turn 1, but of course with those Porpsicles in the deck, would love to have done that, and this is a big threat. Flynn Rider Frenemy, getting my words out, is now on the board, and there's a bit of a battle to see which player can get the highest strength character on the board. If Theo has the highest strength character on the board at the start of their turn, Flynn Rider is going to be gaining 3 lore without even needing to quest.
Yeah, I'm just looking through these 2 drops right here. We see McDuck Mana inked. I'm pretty sure this frenemy is guaranteed to gain this lore because 2 drops, it could be 1 jump ahead. There's Grandma Tala in here, but that's not until 4 drops. So yeah, I'm pretty positive that this frenemy is going to gain its lore. It does. We're going to make a nice jump there. And can we follow up with the Queen's Castle? See, this is the one of the absolute, sorry, not the Queen's Castle. The Sisu would be a wonderful follow-up here. I do see the Queen's Castle in hand, though. We're going to quest with Chernobog's followers, draw an additional card. I think that found another frenemy.
Yeah, and you can see why Ruby Sapphire has been struggling, perhaps, this weekend more than we thought it might, because there's so many Ruby Amethyst players. Double Flynn Rider frenemy. Theo is going very, very aggressive with the Flynn Rider lore gain potential here.
This is a lot of gas. Once again, I don't think Theo has a single option to be. He could play the Sisu Emboldened Warrior. I think that is the only card that he could play in this deck that would prevent these Flynn Riders from gaining 6 lore going into Theo Time's turn. We're going to play Brawl. That's one way to at least subvert the damage a little bit. Going to remove one of those Flynn Riders, but one of them's still there and has the highest strength on the board. So that's bringing player 2 to 8 lore already, and we've only just started. Theo has a lot of catching up to do, but it can be done. They have access to those Ruby cards like Be Prepared and the Madame Medusa, so he could claw his way back, absolutely, but this is a really bad start for Theo.
Wow, Theo is putting in, well, Theo Time and Theo we've got, haven't we? It's a little bit confusing.
Sorry, my mistake.
Theo Time is doing the absolute business. The Ruby Amethyst player with the Sisu and the Flynn combo now. Theo Rodriguez going to be looking to get that higher strength character down on the board, or perhaps remove the Flynn again with a second Brawl. It's Porpsicle played. We
finally see a Porpsicle. I'm sure Theo would have liked that a turn sooner, but at least it's here now. But we're going to exert 2, and we're playing at 1 jump ahead for a little additional ramp. But no character to put down, so we pass back over to Theo Time, who's going to ready up and gain another 3 lore. They're at 12 lore already, Joe. They can quest for 2 and 1 with Flynn, and they're already going to be at 15. And down comes that Queen's Castle. I feel like it's over. I really do, because next turn, well, Theo technically could play Maui. That would be a way that he'd be able to have the highest strength on the field. Frenemy wouldn't gain the 3 lore, but that's Queen's Castle is almost certain. We could see the Hercules Demigod to take out the Queen's Castle. That is a play that could absolutely work out. I think that's probably the best move.
Theo Time on Ruby Amethyst at 15 lore. And finally, Theo plays a character card. It's Madame Medusa. Flynn Rider, though, has put in some serious work. And as Theo Time draws They're going to gain 2 lore for Castle. They can quest for 2 with Sisu, and all they need is a goat to wrap this game up already, Baker.
Yeah, they have absolutely stormed away with it. Theo missing that 1 drop and just having such a slow start, wasn't even able to play 1 jump ahead on turn 2. And Theo time with this beautiful curve went Flynn, into Sisu, into Castle, into another Castle. That's game. Like we could bring out a Hercules demigod or a Maui to go along with this Madame Medusa, but there's no way you're clearing both of these castles. And already that is it. Game 1 done, Joe.
That is the quickest game I've seen all day, and you can really start to see why Ruby Sapphire has had a rough weekend. Absolutely phenomenal gameplay there from Theatime. You saw the Flynn Rider come down on turn 2. The second was not too far behind, and that is the power of Flynn Rider Frenemy. For the Ruby Sapphire player, they're now going to be able to go first in this next game, and they're going to be looking for that turn 3 Sisu to try and contest the Flynn Rider, I would imagine.
Yeah, definitely. If that Flynn Rider comes down, it's definitely going to have to be responded to. Yeah, we just spent so long talking about the amount of extra care that they've put into being able to deal with the Queen's Castle, but in this particular game, they just came down far too fast, didn't have a chance to deal with them, and we're going to be moving into game 2 very shortly. But yeah, Ruby Sapphire was definitely thought of as one of the best decks, the Big Four, as the community are calling it. And yeah, a really strong deck, but this Flynn Rider can really give it a run for its money, the Ruby Sapphire decks. Just these Ruby Sapphire decks are so incredibly slow, wanting to take their time to ramp up to a high ink count and then play these bigger characters. But double Flynn, Sisu, Castle, another Castle, just absolutely got the job done.
It certainly did, Baker. I have not seen a quicker game all weekend long, and it's been a 3-day tournament. There was nothing even close to the speed of the game we just saw. Flynn Rider Frenemy doing the business. That is a big reason why Ruby Sapphire struggles. But let's not forget, Ruby Sapphire does have the tools necessary to try and win this matchup. Clearly, it's a matchup that they're teched for with these Hercules, with the Vitalosphere. It's not all over just yet. It is a best of 3, and Ruby Sapphire now needing to get 2 wins on the bounce in order to go through into the top 4.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of the time, these Ruby Sapphire decks would want to go turn 1 Porpsicle, or Vitalosphere is a good option. It's turn 2, 1 jump ahead, skip to that turn 4. But exactly as you say, if we see this Flynn Rider, then the Sisu Emboldened Warrior is going to be a really important piece to try and prevent the Ruby Amethyst player from just running away with lore once again. But who knows? I'm really shocked that they missed their 1 drop, because they're running 4 Porpsicle. They got the 2 Ice Block and the 1 Vitalosphere. 7 1 drops, which is a respectable amount. You would really hope to see your 1 drops, but no cigar in this particular game.
No, the players now have, of course, shuffled their decks. They're also going to offer their deck to their opponents to give it a little cut, and they're then going to draw 7 cards off the top and are able to mulligan as many of those away as they wish to do so. If they mulligan 7, they draw 7 new cards and then shuffle their deck. If they want to mulligan 1, they draw 1 off the top and then shuffle their deck afterwards. And
if you're only just joining us, welcome to DLC Bochum. This is the top 8 of the event. These players have already secured their Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor. That is in the bag. They will receive those no matter how they progress for the rest of the day, but these players definitely want to go all the way. They also have their invitation to the European Championships, which is a fantastic accomplishment. And we do see that Porpsicle in Theo's hand for turn 1, which is a much better start.
Here we go. Big mulligan, I think 3 cards in total. There's been bigger mulligans with Ruby Sapphire. You need to be really careful about your uninkables, because you tend to play a lot of them, and if you're not careful, too many uninkables in your opening hand could end up to you losing the game by just not having enough ink to play the cards you want to on that turn.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The Ruby Sapphire deck wants to subvert that high uninkable count with the fact that it's running things like the Fishbone Quill, which allows us to ink any card from our hands, even if it is uninkable, or just a nice early ramp at the beginning of the game, courtesy of cards like 1 Jump Ahead. And if you're a newer player, whenever we're talking about ramp, we're referring to just accelerating how much you are flooding your ink well, like 1 Jump Ahead, Fishbone Quill, etc. We're going to see a Maleficent, Monstrous Dragon inked, and develop your brain on turn 1. Look at the top 2 cards of the deck. He will add 1 to his hand, and 1 will go to the bottom.
Yep, Theo Rodriguez starting off, and play passes on over to Theatime. Worth bearing in mind that Theotime was able to go first in game 1 due to them having the higher seeding.
And they're going to ink, throw down a Chernobog's followers, and probably going to look to try and follow that up. I haven't seen their hand, but if they are holding a Flynn Rider, then I expect they will want to take that same line. Hey, it worked for me in the first game, so I see absolutely no reason why it won't work this time. Theo's going to be inking a Porpsicle, and we're going to be exerting too. We do see the 1 jump ahead, which is a much better start for Theo, bringing his ink immediately to 3, and on his next turn he will be able to ink to 4 and perhaps play something like Flavisham. But if that Flynn Rider comes down, which we do see in Theotime's hand, then that Flavisham, while it will be drawing cards, it will not be the most powerful card on the board. So we may instead have to go for something like a Grandma Tala, which of course has that 3 strength and will prevent Theotime from gaining 3 lore.
Chernobog's followers into the inkwell, and guess who's back? It's Flynn Rider Frenemy. Theo Rodriguez knows the work this card can put in, and they're going to be looking to shut it down as soon as possible. Maui into the inkwell. In comes the Grammatala. That's got the 3 strength necessary. Flynn Rider, for now, not gaining any lore for Theotime, and that, for Theo Rodriguez, has to be a huge relief.
An absolute relief, yeah. It could have been the Grandma Tala or the emboldened warrior Sisu. That would have also prevented it. But this Grandma Tala letting him look at the top 2 cards of his deck, 1 into the hand and 1 to the bottom. Very similar to that. Develop your brain. We're going to see Theotime is going to quest with that Chernobog's followers and draw an extra card. We're going to ink Maui, and down comes Maleficent, just for a little bit of extra card draw. There won't be a Sisu in hand, otherwise I'm pretty sure we would have seen it on that turn. So just a little bit of card draw, and then we pass back over to Theo. But Theo's got to be feeling a lot better. This Flynn isn't running away with the game, and now he potentially has the chance to start building his resources, building his inkwell. We see a Porpsicle played, going to draw a card, and we're following up with, just weighing up his options. We're going to be inking Brawl. So we've got 4 ink to play with. Is this going to be a Flavisham? It certainly is. The toy maker himself coming on down using that Artificer ability, removing an item from the board, which is that Porpsicle, and drawing an additional 2 cards. This is a much better position for Theo to be in.
Yeah, Theotime just letting Theo Rodriguez letting Theotime know how many cards are in their hand. Of course, Theo Rodriguez in this game as the Ruby Sapphire player is going first, and you can see the difference that's making early on. Now Theotime, as the player going second, Baker, as Ruby Amethyst, how do you adapt your game plan now that you haven't got that really aggressive lore gain right from the start of the game?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, what we just saw is a really nice start. We want to be able to deny the Ruby Sapphire player as much draw as we can, because they don't have many draw options. Yeah. But Flavisham is an absolute machine. If he is left unchecked, he can just draw tons and tons. Sometimes just getting his ability off once or twice can be enough to give the Ruby Sapphire player all the cards they need. So that Brawl, definitely important piece. And I think Theo at this point is going to look to just build resources and just do some passive lore gain as he goes along. He's going to want to use Madame Medusa and be prepared when the time comes. But there's still a chance that this Flynn Rider could still generate some value if Theotime can get down a Maui or a Sisu emboldened warrior, something like that, that he could still find use for this Flynn Rider. But it may not go that way this time. Theo playing a Porpsicle, going to draw himself an additional card. And then a second Porpsicle. We do love a bit of card draw.
We certainly do, Baker. We certainly do. And yeah, the other thing for Theo, I think you make a great point, denying that Flavisham. That's one thing Ruby Amethyst really got access to this set, is that card Brawl.
Absolutely.
A really nice way of dealing with Flavisham, which otherwise would only be able to be removed by something like a Madame Medusa, as Grandma Tala is going to challenge Maleficent, banishing it. Not only, though, denying the card draw of the Ruby Sapphire player, but also trying to really fight them for card draw and get your own card draw through. We see Theotime with an abundance of cards in hand. We saw them with the Maleficent. We saw them with the Rabbit. Oh. There you go. It's all about removing Theo's card draw and getting your own with cards like Rabbit and Friends on the other side, Baker.
That's the thing, because the Ruby Sapphire player, if they're not able to chain too many Flavishams, then they are going to start to run out of resources quickly, especially if they start to utilize things like the Fishbone Quill. We haven't seen that yet, but that obviously denies some hand resources. We're going to ink, and just a quest. request from Flynn Rider and Theotime passing back over to Theo. But I think that's fine. This Grand Martala is, well, it's either questing for one or it can challenge into the Flynn Rider and they would trade because that Grand Martala already taking 2 damage from the Maleficent. But if I'm Theo, I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm at my 6 ink, 7 now from inking the Maui. If I've got Hercules Demigod, then I know I can answer the Queen's Castle, and this is just a much better position to be in. We see the Ice Block being thrown down for a cost of 1. Can choose a character to take a strength away from it. We're going to see the Madame Medusa come down to remove that Flynn Rider frenemy. So Theo's starting to build a bit of a board presence as we go back into Theotime's turn. He's currently got 5 ink, but can ink to 6 this turn.
Yeah, Theo Rodriguez starting to clear the board, but of course when both players are playing Ruby, it is open deck list. You're having to really, at this moment in time, try to find the balance between committing to the board and gaining lore without over-committing, overextending, and having a huge board cleared by Be Prepared. Now, no need to remove a Flaversham for Theotime this time, because of course, they've already removed both Flavershams. There's no more card draw engines. This is the perfect time for Theotime to start bouncing back the Merlin Rabbit, gaining the card draw of themselves. And I think that this is the objective, isn't it, Baker? Deny Theo Rodriguez card draw and get your own at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely right. The idea here is you just want to out-resource your opponent because Theotime knows that Theo has access to those same powerful Ruby removal cards, such as the Be Prepared, the Madame Medusa, Be King Undisputed, things like that. So he knows the game plan, and he's just going to want to try and tempt these out as quickly as he can. We do see that Hercules Demigod in Theo's hand, along with, of course, that Lucky Dime that's been putting in so much work, especially for the Sapphire Steel decks. But Ruby Sapphire also benefiting from it quite a lot. Tamatoa, lots of items, so that Lucky Dime could absolutely be a game changer in this match. We see another ink hitting the inkwell. We're going to be exerting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And down comes the Lucky Dime already. So Theo is already wanting to utilize this dime. We don't have any big lore characters on board at the moment, but that's still fine. If we're just adding a little 1 or 2 here and there, that's soon going to rack up. So this Lucky Dime being played early is great. And Ruby Amethyst has no access to item removal. There are no cards in Amethyst or Ruby that can deal with these items. So that Lucky Dime will stay on the board for the rest of the game, unless, of course, Flaversham decides to remove it for a couple of card draws. But there's already an Ice Block and a Porpsicle on board, so I don't see that happening.
We do see the friends on the other side for Theotime drawing 2. Be Prepared is now available. We're going to see the Snake quest for 1. Currently Theotime now on 5 lore. Theo Rodriguez, though, does have Dime, as you mentioned, and that means that Theotime really has to start questing quite quickly, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. We're already at 8 ink, I believe. So, yep, something big could come down now and immediately start to gain a lot of lore. And, yeah, I mean, the Ruby Sapphire player, Theo, definitely feeling a lot better. But Theotime, as you just said, has a lot of removal options in their hand. And as I was saying before, as the Ruby Amethyst player, you know you have better card draw. Really, you just want to try and out-resource your opponent. You want to try and bait out there, Be Prepared, etc., and find the right time to extend yourself. At the moment, Theotime just with Merlin Rabbit and a Madam Mim Snake on the board, so nothing too much. So just want to bait out that those removal cards and just out-resource in the long run.
And I think also, Baker, we're seeing the advantage of going first. Theotime in the first game here had the advantage of going first, and we saw that incredibly aggressive approach from them with the frenemy. But when they went second, Theo Rodriguez, a Sisu comes through, the Ice Block as well, targeting the Snake. The Rabbit is gone from the board. Theo is running away with this one, Baker. The power of Ruby Sapphire is on display for all to see.
Yep. Things are absolutely turning around, and that Sisu has 3 lore. Oh, we see the Be Prepared coming down for Theotime, absolutely necessary. There was 5 lore on board, plus the Lucky Dime would have been able to tap to exert for another 3 lore for that Sisu. So that Be Prepared, absolutely necessary, but 7 ink used, he's going to have to end his turn straight away as we pass back into Theo. But he has a respectable hand size as well. Let's see how well he can rebuild his board back up. Just taking a quick look at the discard pile, see what resources I've used, what items are in the discard that I might want to eventually recycle with Tamatoa. Grand Martala, Keeper of Ancient... Is it Keeper of Ancient? Yes, Keeper of Ancient Stories. Hitting the board. Another little bit of card draw. Look at the top 2 cards of the deck. 1 into the hand, 1 to the bottom. Which clearly a hard decision. I think just doing a quick card count check between the players.
Theo Rodriguez with those 3 items, the ice block. You really see the power of the ice block when combined with Sisu in that previous turn Baker. Ice block, a new card in Ursula's return, and is really great when you combine it with a lot of Ruby cards like Brawl, like Madame Medusa and Sisu in this case. And Theo spends 2 ink on the Lucky Dime. It's only 1 lore as the Medusa comes through, but as you mentioned, a big weakness of Ruby Amethyst, they don't have any way of removing this Lucky Dime available, and that is why Theo has just prioritized getting it down this early on.
Yep, I think it's a great idea, and Theo Time just throwing down a Madame Medusa, going to get rid of that Keeper of Ancient Stories as we pass back into Theo. But yeah, this Lucky Dime is definitely a game changer. Theo knows that it creates very much a clock. As soon as Theo starts getting down these bigger characters like the Tamatoa, he's going to make some pretty big lore gains very quickly, especially with 3 items on the board already, and Tamatoa just from being played will be able to recycle Porpsicles from the discard pile. So this Lucky Dime in itself has started the clock, and down does come the so shiny Tamatoa, courtesy of 8 ink. I'm not sure if he's inked for turn yet. He hasn't, so we're going to ink now. So that Lucky Dime is going to be able to exert, immediately gaining 4 lore, because Tamatoa has 1 lore and gains an additional lore for each item on the board. So that's going to be great. And if Theo Time cannot answer this Tamatoa, the next turn it's going to quest for the same amount, maybe more if Theo can play another item. And then the Lucky Dime is going to exert to get the same lore again. I can see it be prepared in Theo Time's hand. Is there a Bee King Undisputed in there as well? Because that would be absolutely ideal. Would be able to play it a lot cheaper. Wouldn't lose the Madame Medusa. Could even sing it with the Madame Medusa. Chooses not to. Just going to pay 4 ink for it, but that does remove a big threat.
It certainly does. You see the power of Bee King Undisputed. No Lady Tremaines in Theo Time's deck, but the Bee King Undisputed doing the business. Now for Theo Rodriguez, though, it's all about the Lucky Dime. You can exert it every turn to gain lore, and you just want to make sure that while you're also getting your own Lucky Dime value each turn, you're keeping Theo Time as far away from 20 as possible, because, of course, in the Amethyst deck, there's that big threat of GOAT, bounce, GOAT, bounce, GOAT.
Yeah, 100%. As soon as Ruby Amethyst reaches this sort of 15, 16 lore mark, it literally in 1 turn, it can be a huge play and just get that bit of reach that Merlin Goat does provide. We're going to see a Madame Medusa who, so the ice block is going to reduce Madame Medusa's strength by 1, and then the Madame Medusa from Theo is going to remove that Madame Medusa. But the Sisu Emboldened Warrior on Theo Time's side of the board, questing for 2 is going to bring them up even Stevens to 8. So not something they want to leave for too long. They do choose to quest. So we are at 8. Words are hard, Joe. They're so hard. We are at 8 ink a piece. That is a bit of a tongue twister, actually. But yeah, lots of removal in Theo Time's hand. Another Bee King Undisputed coming down. I see another couple of ladies in chairs, the Madame Medusas, and there's a Be Prepared in Theo Time's hand. So Theo is going to really struggle to make these big characters stick. And this is where you start to think about the lack of low-cost characters. Some of these decks opting to play things like the Mickey Mouse, or just I think something small that you can put next to your Tamatoa to protect it from the likes of Bee King Undisputed.
Baker, the Hercules is coming in.
There it is.
Who needs Maui? Maui is a 6 strength card. Hercules is a 7 strength card. Queen's Castle down in a single swoop, denying 2 lore for Theo Time, and 2 lore, of course, can make all the difference in a game of Disney Lorcana. The Sisu quest for 2, Theo Time up to 10 now.
Excellent, yeah, and I believe that Cecil was at the Queen's Castle as well, so not just denying that lore, but a little bit of extra card draw. We do see the first Merlin Goat hitting the board. It's going to be followed up by a Madam Mim Fox, who's going to bounce that Goat back to hand. That brings us up to 12. The Madam Mim Fox is going to trade into the Hercules, so already we're starting to see those Goat bounce effects that can give us nice bits of reach. We're already at 12. It could only be a few more turns to get us there, but Theo has a lot of ink here, so he could make some really big plays. The Lucky Dime is already on the board. A Tamatoa coming down would already be a nice 4 lore bump by exerting the Lucky Dime. But again, I'm pretty sure Theo Time has another Bee King Undisputed in his hand. So this is where Theo is really feeling the effects of not having many low-cost characters in their build.
No, absolutely. And we do see now the ice block targeting Sisu. How many cards has Theo in hand? It's 2. So the Sisu there was at 3 strength. Ice Block lowering it to 1,
Yep.
and the legendary Sisu removing the rare Sisu from the board in combination with the Ice Block, and also the legendary Sisu here. It has 3 lore. It is an absolutely brilliant target for the Lucky Dime, and it's now 12 lore for Theotime, but Theo is just 1 behind at 11 with the Lucky Dime and the Sisu remaining on the board.
Yeah, it's still so close. But yeah, the Sisu only removing 1 character from Theotime's side of the board, but absolutely worth it. It was questing for 2 all the way, and there we are seeing that be prepared. Going to remove that Sisu if you have no other options to get rid of it. You can't just ignore it, because otherwise next turn it would quest for 3 up to 14, and then the Lucky Dime would exert, and we would go to 17. So Theotime cannot let a character like that with 3 lore or even 4 lore just sit there unchecked. So yeah, it's still a close game. It still could be anybody's. It's been a lot different from our first game, that's for sure, Joe.
No doubt. Tamatoa now. We know that they love shiny things, and there's a shiny thing on the board, and its name is Lucky Dime, adding a Porpsicle back into the hand.
Oh, yes.
The Porpsicle hits the board. Every item on the board for Tamatoa is increasing its lore.
Ooh.
There's an Ice Block as well. 2 more ink spent on the Lucky Dime. Tamatoa, that is 5 items, 6 lore. Theotime is just 3 away.
That's it. If Theotime cannot answer, he doesn't. He just immediately just drew his card and then started scooping up. Didn't have another removal option for that Sisu. And as I was saying a minute ago, he was really feeling the effects of not having extra low-cost characters to protect these Tamatoas. But eventually, you've got to think, come on, you've got to run out of removal at some point. You can't always have Be King Undisputed, right?
No, absolutely. And I think also, Baker, you see the lack of Lady Tremaine being pretty important in this particular matchup. Lady Tremaine, Be King Undisputed was great. Well, Lady Tremaine does the same thing, but also gives you a card which can quest for 2.
Absolutely, and just that bit of board presence can really help. Plus, then she could sing another Be King Undisputed or a Friends on the other side, something like that. So I'm a fan of the Tremaine, but clearly they haven't needed it across the course of this tournament. But yeah, we are moving into a game 3. If you're only recently joining us, thank you so much for being here. This is Disney Lorcana Challenge in Bochum. Of course, you should follow all of our channels / Disney Lorcana on Facebook, on Twitter. Plenty of places that Disney Lorcana can be found. And we're just doing a little pile shuffle. This is just so the players can count their cards, make sure that nothing's got lost. You don't want to take any chances at this stage of the tournament, because it is all to play for. This is the top 8 game. These guys already have secured their Mickey Mouse Brave Little Tailor, of course, along with the Rapunzel Gifted with Healing, the Rapunzel foil playmat, the Cinderella Stout-Hearted foil promo. These guys already have so many prizes to take home, but they want to go all the way. They want to make top 4. That secures them a couple of Versus Return booster boxes. And if they can get all the way to first, that full playset, foil playset of Versus Return, including Enchanteds.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see the different shuffling techniques on display this weekend. Both players wanting to go for a little pile shuffle. The games, of course, have been pretty quick. It's just a nice way of quickly giving your deck a thorough shuffle, but as well, of course, it does need to be a randomized shuffle, so you're not only just doing the pile shuffle, you're giving it a little bit of a pile shuffle as well as a real good natural shuffle as well. Yeah. Natural shuffle's not quite the right word, but normal shuffle.
We know what you meant. We know what you meant, Joe. You're a fan of shuffling, aren't you? You like a good shuffler.
I certainly do. Shuffling is always really exciting to watch. We did see in the previous round Justin with, I think, the best shuffling I've seen. Frank Carsten. Let's talk about Frank Carsten shuffling from Lille. That was something quite special.
You were impressed, weren't you?
I really, really was. Frank Carsten, if those of you are interested, who was our champion in Lille, unfortunately did not quite make the top cut. They were playing yesterday on Saturday. It was an Emerald Steel deck which Frank Carsten brought to the tournament, and they were still in contention, but then in the 8th round they had a 1-1, and I do think that meant that it wasn't quite possible to make. Actually, Baker, speaking with one of the contestants, I heard something very interesting. We were talking yesterday about 45 points being that magical number which nearly guarantees you safety. I am told by one of the contestants that actually there was 1 or 2 players with 45 points who didn't quite make it.
That must have stung a little bit. I feel very sorry for those players, but hopefully they're still, congratulations to them. That's a fantastic score to make. I'm sure they still would have got their Let It Go promo, absolutely.
It just shows you as well that every point really does matter.
There's a close-up
So you want
of
to play as much Lorcana as you possibly can this weekend.
Sure.
That two-game format kind of eliminating what you see a lot of the time, or largely eliminating what you see a lot of the time, which is players just deciding to draw around to really increase their chances of staying in it.
Absolutely.
Because you never know with these points totals exactly what's safe, and you don't want to take any risks by not getting as many points as you possibly can. Both players drawing 7 cards. It is going to be the Ruby Amethyst player going first. And of course, we probably expect to see Flynn Rider on turn 2 from Ruby Amethyst.
Yeah, I expect they will be hoping for a game very similar to what they had game 1. It is not.
So far, it's
oh, wait, yeah, I think it... No, that's a brawl. That is a brawl.
Access to Flynn as it stands.
No 1-drops either. Yeah, this looks like a much slower turn from our Ruby Amethyst player. No 1-drops. The only 2-drop I saw there was the Madam Mim Snake. So yeah, this looks like it's going to be a much slower start from the Ruby Amethyst player. They do have that brawl, so they will be able to respond to an early card like Flavisham, but we'll see how the cards go. Game 1, our Ruby Sapphire player got pretty unlucky with their draws, so we'll see how it goes. I think we're doing another little, just another, a shuffle after our mulligan, I'm guessing. I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah, I think both players mulliganing, giving a shuffle as well.
Cool.
Making sure everything's in order. So, of course, 7 cards down on the table each. Those are going to be added into, well, they're not going to be added into the hand. Those are the cards which are going to be in the player's hand. We've got that Rapunzel gifted with healing, giving ourselves an absolutely beautiful backdrop. And it is going to be the Ruby Amethyst player to your right, Theatime, who has the honor of kicking this off as the player that goes first. They were the higher seed, which is why they went first in game 1. And then, of course, the loser of that game gets to go first in game 2. And then the loser of game 2 going first in game 3. So Theatime going first for the 2nd time in this best-of-3 series. This is the top 8, and it is now going to all come down to this for this players. They've secured their Mickey, but there is so much more to play for. I'm trying to look at the hand, and I do see a 2-cost character. I think Flynn Rider has found its way into Theatime's hand. I'm pretty sure it's a Flynn Rider frenemy.
If you're right, then I'm sure the Theatime would be very happy with that. We also see that Peter Pan Shadow Finder in Theatime's hand, as you mentioned, not really for this particular matchup, but you never know, it could come in useful. We're going to be inking and a Porpsicle from Theo. A great start from then. You're absolutely right. We do see that Flynn Rider, who I expect is going to come straight down. It does. We inked the Maleficent, and now this Flynn Rider is immediately putting that pressure on Ruby Sapphire. Play a character with more strength than me, or equal strength to me would also be fine, and then I will not gain 3 lore. We're going to see the inking of the Sisu Emboldened Warrior. It's all to play for, Joe. Oh, a 1-jump ahead.
Okay, Baker, let's talk about one jump ahead on 2, and now they've got extra ink to work with. There's a brawl in hand to remove this Flynn the next turn. We see the Pan Shadow Finder coming through. Flynn questing, so 4 lore total from Flynn Rider that turn. But how much longer will Flynn be on the board? Because there's a brawl, but there's also Grandma Tala's available to just have that battle for the highest strength character swinging back into favor for Theo.
Yeah, that was a great play. If he'd have just played Brawl, then sure, it would have removed the Flynn Rider, but you're not adding any board presence. There's Grandma Tala doing both. She can be a bit of board presence, let us draw a card, find something that we might need, and of course that 3 strength, meaning that Frenemy will not be gaining any more lore. We go back into Theatime and finds a Be Prepared off the top. We're going to sing Friends on the other side with our Peter Pan Shadow Finder, just as you said earlier. May not really be for this matchup, but it's perfectly fine as something to sing songs. And hey, questing for 1 each turn is fine. You've got evasive, so hey, one lore return, it's pretty good by my standards. We're going to ink a Flynn Rider, Frenemy, clearly feeling that we don't need another one on board at the moment. And down comes the Merlin Goat, which again puts us in that position, Joe, where that Goat is the highest strength character on the board. So once again, demanding of Theo a character with more than 4 to prevent the Flynn Rider frenemy from gaining lore. It could happen. We're going into a turn where Theo could have 5 ink. Well, they've just played Porpsicle, so it's a max of 4 ink now. In that instance, I'm not sure if we can get above 4 strength. Not necessarily. We'll see what he's got.
It is really that battle for the high strength character. We see the Porpsicle 1, but there is Brawl available. That's going to be a way of removing the Flynn and denying the lore gain.
Yep, that's nice. Again, still very passive, though.
Yep, another Porpsicle comes through. For now, it's all for Theo. Theo Rodriguez, their job is to just keep controlling the board as much as possible.
Yep.
Don't let Theo time creep up anywhere near that 20 mark. When you're playing against goats, it's almost like you've got to stop them from getting to 15 because they can bounce that goat back to their heart's desire and gain that lore without you being able to stop them. The rabbit is going to be a great bit of card draw for Theo time.
Yep, drawing us an additional card. We can see some of those removal cards already held. 2 copies of Be King Undisputed, 1 Be Prepared, 1 Madame Medusa. And we are at that. Is it 6 ink that we're at now for Theo time? I believe so. We're going to quest up with our characters. Take Theo time to 7 lore. Theo still at 0, yet to get any lore on the board. But as we've seen multiple times from these Sapphire decks, they can catch up very, very quickly, courtesy of this Lucky Dime and things like Tamatoa.
Grammatala, the card Theo just drew, they have access to a very nice Maui. It's an enchanted Maui.
Ooh, lovely.
And that is not what we're going to see. I got excited there. It's the Flavisham instead. Banishing a Popsicle into the discard pile and drawing 2 cards. Now, Theo time again. At this stage, they haven't been able to have that really aggressive opener, so it is going to become quite similar to what we saw in Game 2, where they're looking to deny Theo Rodriguez's card draw while getting some card draw of their own, while also being a little bit more aggressive with their questing because they are the player going first.
Yeah, for sure, and Theo time's going to feel good to have those removal options in his hand. Going to do hopefully the same as he did previously, constantly remove these Tamatoas, but saying that, he ended up losing that game, so will it be enough? If you just let the Ruby Sapphire player get to a high enough ink, they really can start to steamroll. But Theo time finding a Maleficent, which is the only inkable in their hand.
Yeah, and we saw Theo Rodriguez deciding to challenge with their Grammatala, removing the goat from the board, and then Madame Medusa denying the Flavisham. Theo time's Ruby and Amethyst deck working really well. The card draw of Amethyst, the control of Ruby, and look at that hand, Baker. There's more Ruby control where that came from.
Yeah, plenty more of removal options. If Theo does build a board again, then Theo time will hopefully be able to answer that once again. This Peter Pan Shadowfinder still just sitting there and casually questing for 1 every turn, which is certainly putting in some work. We see the Grand Martala coming down for Theo. Going to look at the top 2 cards of the deck, find 1 for the hand and 1 to the bottom. We see how far I'll go at a 1 jump ahead in hand there. You've got to think would certainly interested in singing the how far I'll go with this Grand Martala potentially.
I think you could be right there, yeah.
Might have a different line in mind. Going to play 1 jump ahead first by just paying 2. So that's going to accelerate our ink well even more. We're going to ink Maui for turn.
And it is going to pass back on over to Theo time, who's going to draw. No Flynn Rider on the board, of course, so the highest strength not currently mattering. A very, very quick quest from Theo time with all 3 characters. That was 3 lore gained. And they're now going to spend their 6 ink on a Madame Medusa, and they're going to be praying that Theo time does not have access to a 7 cost card that is known as Be Prepared. They don't, but there is another very big control threat available for Theo Rodriguez.
And yeah, I imagine you're eyeing up that Sisu that we've seen come down a couple of times already. They can banish all characters of 2 strength or less. That would remove the Rabbit and the Peter Pan Shadow Finder. But these 2 Madame Medusas sitting at 4 strength each. Even 1 ice block wouldn't be enough to bring them into range. We'd need at least 2 for that. And pass over. Theo still deciding it's the best move to make. He needs to establish some sort of board presence. But we know that Theo time is holding a Be King Undisputed in his hand. So I don't imagine this Sisu is going to be sticking around for very long. We're going to start off by paying 3 for Maleficent. Oh, it finds us a Oh, yeah, we do have the Beacon Undisputed. We find us a Be Prepared. So we're going to be inking probably either the Sisu or the Fox. I imagine he's interested in playing the Beacon Undisputed this turn. Yeah, it absolutely does come down. Removing that Sisu from the board, well, forcing Theo to remove it from his own board.
Yep.
A fantastic card. Definitely a meta-defining in the Ruby Amethyst decks for set 4.
And Theo is so close to that 20 mark. 5 away now. These Mana Medusas have a lot of strength. There's no ice block available, so the Sisu Legendary is not going to be able to remove them from the board. And there's no sign of Be Prepared just yet. And there are, I'm taking a quick look at the deck list, trying to see how many copies of Be Prepared. There's 3 copies of Be Prepared in Theo's deck list.
Yeah, so you got to imagine he's a bit upset to have not found them yet, but still, you get into position sometimes where you have to play the Be Prepared just because you're about to lose. And this board at Theo time, questing for 3, he is on a 2-turn clock, so it would potentially be of interest to him, but doesn't have it just yet. So Theo just weighing up his options, trying to get a decent look at his hand here.
Theo Rodriguez is the last Ruby Sapphire player in the tournament. The fans of Ruby Sapphire everywhere, and there's a lot of them, it's a very popular deck, are all wanting Theo Rodriguez to pull this comeback off. In comes Tamatoa. It's an 8-cost character. The Popsicle is added back to the hand. It's played. There's Be Prepared, but it's probably too late, Baker.
Yeah.
Where was that Be Prepared before the Tamatoa was played? Wow.
Yeah, I think you might be right. It might be a bit too late. Theo time about to go up to 18, and then all it's going to take is a goat and a bounce, or a goat and a goat, and it is over. Theo has a lot of catching up to do, still only at 0 lore. You're right. I think all the Ruby Sapphire fans out there, their hopes and dreams are lying on Theo right now, but it's not looking good.
No, absolutely. The Tamatoa is the last crab standing for Theo Rodriguez. Double Madame Medusa and Maleficent on Theotime's side of the board. Goes for the Fox onto the Maleficent. Plays the Maleficent again to draw a card. Queen's Castle is a great option available for Theotime, but it's not all over yet with that Be Prepared available for Theo Rodriguez.
Yeah, for sure, and not going to be able to play the Queen's Castle. This turn only has 1 ink remaining, so we go over to Theo. I think he is absolutely forced to play this Be Prepared here. If he's got an item that he can play first, that Tamatoa quests for a little more, then great, but this Be Prepared absolutely has to come down. Otherwise, Theotime will absolutely be winning on his next turn, but Theo fully aware that Theotime just away from that goat bounce or goat to take it to a GG. We do see Theo coming down with that Be Prepared, clearing the board, his own Tamatoa included.
Yep, absolutely. There's the Tamatoa. Again, though,
so the Tamatoa sang Be Prepared. Okay, that's good. So now he has a lot of ink.
Okay, so Tamatoa is singing Be Prepared and able to play another Tamatoa to gain that board control back, which is going to be really, really crucial, Baker, to remove that Queen's Castle if it does in fact come down. There it is. I don't think, though, Theo has that Vitalosphere in their discard pile, but what they do have is a Maui in hand. But also, at this stage, Baker, you really want to remove the Chernobog's followers. Every lore matters. The threat of the goat is very real, and Theo needs to remove all the questers and then get that dime down, get the dime ticking away, and get close to 20 very, very quickly.
Yeah, there is a Maui there, as you said. How much ink do we have? Do we have enough ink to go Maui plus Madame Medusa? Because that would allow a complete board clear. The Madame Medusa would remove the Chernobog's followers, and the Maui plus Tamatoa would be able to go into Queen's Castle, but I'm not sure if we have enough ink to be able to make that play.
It's the Flavisham that Theo goes for, draws 2 cards. In comes the Enchanted Maui. What a flex on the stage here. Both of the cards challenging into the Queen's Castle. Chernobog's remains on the board. And that means if a goat is found by Theotime, it will be a victory. There it is!
Right off the top, Joe!
The Chernobog's followers quest for 1. It banishes itself to the discard pile. Theotime draws a card, and it was the goat that they needed. What a dominant performance from Ruby Amethyst when going first there.
For sure.
Really making use of their higher seeding from the Swiss event on day 1 and day 2 of this event. It was an absolutely incredible performance. Flynn Rider Frenemy, the star of the show.
Absolutely, that Frenemy absolutely running wild in game one. And even in that final game there, was able to, I think, it was at 3 or 6, one or the other. It's still put in some work. So what an incredible game. My apologies to Ruby Sapphire fans out there. Hey, it's still a great deck. It had a wonderful run here, all the way to top 8. Won a Mickey Mouse Brave little Taylor. But yeah, that was a fantastic game. A real shame that the Ruby Sapphire seemed to just really brick in that first game and just could not answer that double Flynn Rider. But yeah, that final game, we were so close to the end, and with that Chernobog questing to find a draw, he had to know that he was close to GOAT. I don't think we'd seen a single GOAT yet, so he knew that was his win condition, and we found it right off the top.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, even if the GOAT wasn't found at that point, the likelihood that there would be a GOAT somewhere, even if you're paying 3 for friends, draw some more cards, find the GOAT. And you really see why Ruby Amethyst is such a great deck. It always has been. You've got the control of Ruby, the draw power of Amethyst, and that new addition to Ruby, Flynn Rider, just gives you that ability to get that early questing in, which, well, not even questing, that early lore game without having to quest. That is a great new tool, and the Brawl as well. I think those 2 cards have been the biggest additions to Ruby Amethyst in the Ursula's Return meta. Of course, into the Inklands, the deck got access to Queen's Castle as well, and every time I start writing Ruby Amethyst off, it somehow gets better.
Somehow, some way it gets better. I think you're absolutely right. The Brawl giving it a much needed answer to things like Diablo and the Flavisham, of course, but also the Bee King Undisputed, I don't think could be understated at all. Putting in so much work, being able to just chain remove those Tamatoas in the opening game. So yeah, Ruby Amethyst definitely gained the tools that it needed. Hasn't changed a lot card-wise, but it still feels like a very different deck just because of the way you play it with that Flynn Rider as opposed to just one-drop Snake. We have so many more lines we can take now.
And we are just in a moment going to be able to look at our top 4 bracket. Not sure if all of the other games yet have finished. I'd be surprised considering how
that was a quick one.
Our game was, especially game 1. But we're going to have a little look at the top 4 bracket in just a moment and see how it is looking. And let's have a little look. As you can see, not all of the games are finished, but there's a Ruby Amethyst player locked in to each semi-final. We could see a Ruby Amethyst mirror in the final. And Baker, you predicted Ruby Amethyst to win this whole tournament. If that would happen, your prediction would be correct.
Yes, and I'll be very proud of that. Yeah, Ruby Amethyst has been my favorite deck ever since the beginning. I'm a big believer in it. I think it's just got all the tools necessary. Just the card draw engine that it has, courtesy of friends on the other side, Merlin, Rabbit, the Chernobog's followers, even just for a bit of deck thinning to help us get closer to those pieces we need, the Maleficents. It just out-resources so many decks. And there are so many decks as well, like Ruby Sapphire and Sapphire Steel, that just play one big character at a time, and because we have Bee King Undisputed, we can really deal with them.
Yeah, so 2 Ruby Amethyst players making it through to the semi-finals. There's 2 more games still ongoing in the main hall. Of course, it's a long old day here as well. Currently in Germany, it's 2:30, I do believe. So we're getting quite far into the afternoon. The game started at around 9 a.m. So these players have been going for a really long time. I would really advise our players that have been going to get a drink, get a nice bit of food in as well. Maybe a currywurst, because Bochum, where we are in Germany, it's the 3rd time I've said it, it's the home of the currywurst.
Have you had it yet?
Guess what, Baker? I still have not had the currywurst I'm looking for. I'm going back to Blighty, back to England tomorrow, so I need to make sure tonight is the night I get my hands on the currywurst.
Tonight is the night.
If those of you aren't familiar, you've never had one before, have you?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you've got to have one. It's brilliant. It's the sausage in curry sauce. What's not to like? All right,
I'm sorry. If we can find somewhere tonight to go, then I'll try it. But, Joe, let's just take a moment to just appreciate what an incredible weekend it's been overall. I'm sure I can speak for you to say I'm so grateful to get to be here, to get to commentate for these incredible games, to work with Disney Lorcana and just see the best players in the world, see their innovations, and it's just fantastic to be here. The vibes are immaculate. Also, when I was having my break, as I said, I was looking around the top tables, and obviously there's a nice big crowd. It's roped off, so there's plenty of space, but after every game you're hearing a round of applause, and that is exactly the sort of energy that I want to see in the room. This whole room has passed the vibe check.
No, absolutely. It's also really nice to see now that we're at this stage in the final day, the day 1 and day 2 are Friday and Saturday. The whole hall was filled with 1,000 players playing. But now from all those tables, all those rows, it's down to the final row of players. And now it's the final 4. We're going to have 2 sets of players in here, one set, 2 more players in the main hall, so just 1 more table is going to be used in the final round in the main hall. And then the final, of course, it's going to be on the main stage broadcast here. And I cannot wait to see the action unfold in the semis as well as the final. And I do believe as well our player is getting settled down for an interview. I do believe it's the winner from the previous round. So hopefully we're going to be able to get that available in English and German, but we'll check that and confirm. Baker, I've been looking through my deck.
Yeah.
I have got some
How are you feeling? Are you feeling confident?
I like my deck. I've not got much experience at all of playing draft. I played 1 draft before and I did okay.
What did you pull in your draft? You got to tell that story.
I got an Ursula Sea Witch Queen in my draft, Enchanted, which was great. But I actually played against an artist, Emily Abadira, in round 1, and she beat me, and that wasn't great. So she did a really, really good job. Shout out to her. And one thing I'm not sure about, I don't have many 2-cost cards I like, and I'm wondering if I play Gus as just a 2/3. I've gone for Cogsworth. I've gone for lots of discard. I'm an Emerald Amber player at heart, and Emerald likes to discard, so we're going to go for that. We are now going to jump on into an interview and see what is cracking over there.
So, hallo und herzlich willkommen. Da sind wir auch schon wieder in der Interview-Area und wir haben hier den guten Theo-Tim sitzen und er hat ja gerade wirklich ein sehr gutes Match abgeliefert und konnte somit 2 der 3 Runden für sich entscheiden. Und ich würde sagen, wir gehen direkt ins Interview. Ich werde das danach wieder für euch übersetzen. First of all, congratulations for this big win for you. This means the quarterfinals are safe for you. And first of all, how was it in general for you? This match right now.
This match.
Yeah.
So first game was like perfect draw. I had everything, and
you were super fast.
Yeah. It's the game plan against red when you are purple red, and everything goes perfectly.
Yeah.
Second match. I tried a game plan where I was killing all Iram in order to reduce as much as possible his draw engine, but it did not go perfectly because Dime was too fast to come to the board, so it did not work. And game 3, I did my best to make a quick aggression and wait for my goat to close the game, and I had to be prep in my end in order to wait 2 more turns.
Also er sagt gerade, dass er hier auf jeden Fall erstmal sehr zufrieden ist mit dem Outcome. Es war natürlich sehr intensiv. Er hat jetzt natürlich in diesen 3 Spielen auch versucht, Tempo ranzubringen, und es hat in dem ersten Spiel vor allem extrem gut funktioniert. Er hat es geschafft, sehr, sehr schnell und aggressiv zu sein. Er wusste, sein Gegner braucht einfach ein paar Runden, um halt ins Spiel zu kommen, und dann hat das natürlich das Ganze mit zum Beispiel Flynn Rider und Sisu sehr, sehr gut funktioniert, und das hat dann in den weiteren Spielen, die dann gefolgt sind, halt auch noch funktioniert. You spoke about the match plan or the game plan in general. You had a very, very fast start. Did you try to do the same thing that you did in the first match, to be that fast, to be aggressive with the Flynn Riders and the Sisu? And
game 3?
No, in the second game.
No, I was trying to be slow on the second game. Yeah, to win with the value, but it was not working because the Lucky Dime.
Yeah, Lucky Dime was very powerful in the second match. That's true. All right, to the last question. How do you like the Lorcana Challenge in general, the event here in Bochum?
Very much. This is my second top. I was 4 in Lille, so I will try to do better now. Nice event, and everything works well. Melee is working perfectly.
Yeah, it's working perfect. Yeah. Also wir hören gerade, ihm gefällt das Event hier wirklich sehr, und er freut sich auf die nächsten Runden auf jeden Fall. Es ist jetzt das 2. Mal, dass er in den Top-Runden dabei ist. You said you were in the top cut in Lille as well, right?
Top 4. This is
Top 4. Oh, sogar ein Top 4 Spieler aus der Lorcana Challenge in Lille ist das.
I lose to Frank Carsten.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, also er hat tatsächlich nur gegen Frank Carsten verloren, gegen den Finalisten aus der letzten Lorcana Challenge, und von daher ist jetzt hier für dich noch alles drin. Wir wünschen dir auf jeden Fall weiterhin viel Erfolg. Es sieht ja bisher sehr gut aus. Wir gehen jetzt aber in eine kurze Pause und dann geht es auf jeden Fall gleich weiter hier in dem Stream. Da sind wir.
And welcome back to DLC Bochum, Germany. We have just finished the top 8 game of the players moving on to the top 4 bracket. We just watched an incredible game between Ruby Sapphire and Ruby Amethyst, and the Ruby Amethyst player just absolutely stormed away. I think it's the quickest game of Lorcana I've ever seen in my entire life. That first game was able to get that perfect curve of well, I was going to say perfect curve of Flynn Sisu Castle, but it was actually Flynn Sisu Castle, and just an incredible amount of lore gain. One that in no time at all, the Ruby Sapphire player was able to bring it back to a 1-1, but then for game 3 went very similarly. The Ruby Amethyst player getting some advantage with Flynn Rider, and then just getting closer and closer. It's had a couple of characters on board. We had Peter Pan, Shadow Finder, and just edging it all the closer until we got to the point where it was just a goat away from game, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, we've seen GOAT win a lot of games. I feel like we're not done seeing GOAT win games in Lorcana, and I think it's getting interesting. Ruby Amethyst, everybody's saying, well, it's not so good into Emerald Steel. It's a bit rough into Emerald Steel. Yep. Emerald Steel is everywhere. And on the one hand, that's a fair point. On the other hand, I think one just beat one out there in the field, if I remember correctly. And now we've got 2 in top 4. And it might be Ruby Amethyst time to shine.
As if it hasn't been shining since the very beginning, Ross. I'm sorry, I just have to say it, though. Ruby Amethyst has been... it definitely has main character syndrome. I feel like just as everyone thought, OK, Ruby Amethyst is going to be on the lower shelves for this format. Nope. Nope, I'm better. I'm good. I still have Queen's Castle. I have Flynn Rider for enemy, and of course that King Undisputed, an incredible extra option for that deck, which is just so strong. And as I was saying in the previous game, a lot of decks like Sapphire Steel and Ruby Sapphire tend to just play one big character, like next to a Lucky Dime, and just try to race the game, like Tamatoa, who can make huge lore gains. But if you do that, then these cards like King Undisputed could just immediately remove you and let the Ruby Amethyst player continue to cook.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very cheap compared to a lot of these big kind of desperation cards. You know, Be Prepared, big desperation card, great card.
Yep.
7 cost uninkable. Be King Undisputed, 4 cost. That is, and of course can be sung by a character of 4 cost or less for free. So that means that it is going to hit the board a lot more easily. And a lot of the time, one big character, maybe a couple of little ones.
Yep.
Use your characters to take out theirs. And oh look, one big annoying character. Be King Undisputed, it's not much of an investment. It's uninkable, which is annoying.
Yeah.
But, you know, there has to be a downside.
You can't have it
here.
all,
You
Ross.
cannot
We cannot have it all.
But it's very easy to get into play compared to a lot of these other cards,
Yep.
like Madame Medusa, like Lady Tremaine, like your Be Prepared, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it certainly does, and just again, that a way to get around the ward keyword, as it does, very similar to Lady Tremaine. You make the opponent choose a character. So Be King Undisputed doing the same thing, but like you said, it can be sung. We can use our rabbits or our Merlin goats, and yeah, it's just absolutely been one of the star cards of the tournament. And as you say, we already have 2 Ruby Amethyst decks locked in to that top 4. Will we see a Ruby Amethyst mirror match in the finals? What do you think?
I don't know. Ruby Amethyst has always been one. Like, I've been playing a lot of it in this format.
Yep.
And it's a bit slow for me. It
Okay.
takes
fair.
a few turns to get going. The early turns are fine, but it's when you're getting your Lady Tremaine, your Madame Medusa, your Be Prepared, your Maui. When these characters are all coming down, when you get to the point where you're putting enough offensive pressure on the board that you can put down a Queen's Castle with an expectation it's going to stick, that is when the deck really starts cooking. But it does seem to be playing against a few slower decks coming in here. Maybe that's giving it time to get rolling. All I know is it's suddenly proving itself here, and we're starting to see slightly different builds. Not hugely different, but slightly different to what we expected coming in. Maybe they've cracked the code, because it certainly seems like, you know, whereas, you know, Emerald Steel seemed like it was going to be the best deck. Even as we came into Top Cut, it was the most played deck in Swiss.
Yep.
It was the most played deck in Top Cut. It was at the best conversion. And yet, Amethyst Ruby, it's out there, it's doing well.
It's still absolutely doing the business, and I'm very sorry, Ross, but the final Ruby Sapphire deck has been eliminated courtesy of that last game, which was your prediction
That was
to go
my
all
prediction.
the way. Tamatoa, let you down. I'm sorry.
It's all right. Justin is still out there with a Steel Sapphire deck.
There you go.
Tamatoa still has a chance. But, of course, we know. Now, am I right in thinking, because I was not on there with you, I've not seen the bracket. Am I right in thinking we've got Ruby Amethyst on each side of the bracket?
We have, yes.
Because that means, very importantly, if Justin with that Steel Sapphire does get into top 4, means you are going to be playing against an Amethyst Ruby, which is not the matchup you want to see.
No, it's not. Don't get me wrong, Sapphire Steel can absolutely still beat the Ruby Amethyst decks. I've experienced this in the past, where if they're able to play something like a Tamatoa, or even the newer Aerial Treasure Collector, who quests for 3 but quests for 5 if you have more items on the board than the opponent. If you're able to get that down next to your lucky dime, and you can't answer that Aerial, then they can just win out of nowhere, because they tap the dime, exert the dime to gain 5 lore from Aerial, and then if you can't answer the Aerial on the following turn, they quest, and then they exert the dime again. So that's 15. So that means all they had to do between turns 1 and 7 was find 5 lore from somewhere, which is fairly reasonable. So yeah, it absolutely can lose, but as we were just talking about a moment ago, those cards like Lady Tremaine and Be King Undisputed that get around that ward keyword, so that can help deal with Aerial, and of course Be Prepared, another way that we can deal with the Tamatoa. So yeah, generally speaking, I feel favoured as a Ruby Amethyst player facing Sapphire Steel, but that does by no means mean that it is written on the wall. It could very much be a dub for the Sapphire Steel player. I know there's a lot of people in the community that are big fans of Sapphire Steel, so I'm sure they'd love to see me proved wrong and see Ruby Amethyst taken down.
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, it can be a little bit rough into that. The removal can really hurt sometimes, but you know what? All it takes is a decent start, you know, and you can, those big swing turns can make a huge difference. But we've got to take a bit of a break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back.
And before we take that break, we will just take a little look at the final bracket. We can see we have Ruby Amethyst on each side of it, as Ross was just saying a moment ago. And yes, Sapphire Steel, courtesy of Justin, was able to make it into those semi-finals. So it is going to be Ruben versus Justin on one side of the bracket. And which match will we be taking a look at, Ross?
Well, I believe we are actually going to see Ruben against Justin, because here's the thing, Baker.
Tell me the thing, Ross.
We don't have to wait for this game. This game's cooked and ready to go. Well, we've just been handed one of the deck lists, so I think that means we might be going sooner rather than later. And of course, in untimed games, that, you know, if the games have a time limit, you need to start them at exactly the same time. Without a time limit, there is potentially, you know, start one game a little bit earlier. Maybe we sync up in the end, but certainly we do not need to start these at exactly the same time. We've got one of them settled. And I'm going to be honest with you, I know we're not supposed to play favorites. I'm not really playing favorites here.
Go on.
But let's say I go out into the hall. There's no stream going on.
Yep.
I'm allowed to sit and watch whatever game I want.
Of course.
I'm watching Justin's game. I want to see whether this Sapphire Steel can go up against this Ruby Amethyst. If I had a choice between the games, I don't. I'm sitting here. Sometimes when I'm off stream, I can influence. I can give my opinions. Not when I'm sitting up here. This would have been my choice. And yeah,
I totally respect that, Ross. I really, really do.
I think we've got one of the players even sat down.
Yeah, one sat down. The other one, I think, is making their way to the table as we speak. But yes, to your point, the Sapphire Steel player, as I've just said, I do think is not favoured against Ruby Amethyst, but they've made it all the way here, right? They went through 9 rounds of Swiss on either Friday or Saturday, whichever day they chose to come, and then they've already played a few games. They're the top 64, 32, 16, and top 8 games. They've already won 4 times today. I dare say they have run into some Ruby Amethyst across the run of their tournament, so they're probably very prepared. They know what to expect, and they're probably going to play it the best they can, and if anyone can do it, it's someone that is made top 4 for a DLC. And
it is not your standard list. The one thing that really stands out to me as we look at this list is we've got Beast. Beast is generally not what we see. This is Justin's list I'm talking about, the Steel Sapphire. We generally do not see that, you know, that Beast.
The hard-headed one, are you talking about? The 5-cost Inkable that removes an item, or the Tragic Hero?
I am talking about Tragic Hero.
Tragic Hero.
You. Now, we see loads of Tragic Hero.
Of course.
You know, Emerald Steel, you're going to see it in abundance. It's going to be coming out. It's one of the cards we've seen the most on stream this weekend. It is everywhere, but we don't usually see it in Steel and Sapphire. Now, I'm not saying Beast itself is going to win the game against Amethyst Ruby. What I am saying is this is not your dad's Steel Sapphire. This is a newer version of it, a different version of it where things are a little bit different. And what that means is these counts are probably, I mean, look, coming in, you knew what the top 2 decks were.
Yeah.
We knew what the 2 decks everyone was gunning for were. So you had that opportunity to build your deck to try and beat them. So it's very possible that your standard Steel Sapphire has a worse matchup than Justin's Steel Sapphire.
Yeah, you could be absolutely right. Sapphire Steel not always opting to play that Tragic Hero Beast, specifically because, well, lots of reasons, but one of the main ones being that Madame Medusa targeting characters with 3 strength or less to be able to immediately remove. And if Sapphire Steel already is struggling against Ruby Amethyst, then also playing cards that are just going to be removed by Medusas also isn't going to be the best. So I'll take your word for it. There's Beast Tragic Heroes. Maybe they will help the Sapphire Steel player to out-resource the Ruby Amethyst player.
Yeah, the draw is nice, and like I say, I'm not saying that specific card is going to necessarily swing the matchup.
Of course.
I'm just saying we have different ways to play,
100%.
and that is going to make a difference potentially.
Oh, wrong one there. Sorry, we'll be going over to our players in just a moment. But yes, Ross, I'm sure you're going to thoroughly enjoy watching this matchup right here. Here are our players sat at the table. And yes, they've already achieved their Mickey Mouse brave little task. Nice to see big smiles on the faces of our 2 players. Obviously, this is going to be a big, important game. They want to go all the way, but nice to see the friendly vibes between the players. But yeah, they've already got so many prizes. The Mickey Mouse brave little tailor, the Rapunzel gifted with healing card and playmat, the Cinderella stout-hearted. Now that they're in top 4, Ross, they also guarantee a couple of booster boxes of Ursa's return, but I'm sure they want to go all the way.
Okay, we are not watching Justin's game. We got Ruben against Fear Time here. This is not the Steel Sapphire player. I was going to say, when they sat down, I'm like, that is definitely not Justin. We've had Justin on stream. I was watched Justin's game. That is not Justin. We have got now, I don't believe the other side of the bracket was filled in when we looked at it a minute ago. Seems like it has been filled in since.
Yeah, I'm guessing that game finished in quick time, and then there was just a little change around of what the players wanted to do. So we'll just confirm both the deck lists. I do have Ruben's deck list in front of me. We've already seen them on stream today. Very traditional count of most things. They are opting for that 3 count of Madame Medusa, the boss, and 2 copies of Lady Tremaine, Imperious Queen, alongside, of course, those 3 Be King Undisputed. Nothing else I'm seeing in here that's too out of the ordinary. Very clean deck list. Lots of 4s. The only 3s I'm seeing are Be King, Lady Tremaine. Oh, no, yeah, sorry. 2 Lady Tremaine, 3 Madame Medusa, 3 Be King Undisputed, and then 4s of everything else. They're opting for the Chernobog's Followers to be their 1-drop. That's the only 1-drop they're playing. The 4 Flynn Rider. We've got 4 Maleficent Sorceress. The standard bounce package. 4 Be Prepared. Lots of standard stuff that we want to see in these decks.
Yeah, we do see a lot of similar cards in a lot of these decks, and what happens is, we've got such a large player base. There are thousands of people around the world playing Disney Lorcana, and what that means is people settle on the best decks quickly. Now, this gives a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, everybody knows if you play, let's say you're playing Ruby, you're going to be playing, well, almost certainly Be Prepared. You're going to be playing Maui. You're probably going to be playing Madame Medusa. There are a bunch of cards that are just better than other Ruby cards. But then the other side is that really opens up the possibility here for weirder decks to come through, for individual decks that people aren't expecting. Things like we saw the Morph, people coming onto it. Things like Louisa Madrigal we saw on stream. Things like Chen Po, for instance, which is a card we don't usually see. These are cards that players are not prepared for and take them by surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. But at this point in the tournament, now that it's open deck list, that really changes things, because you know exactly what they're playing, you know the exact counts for everything. So definitely a big difference between the Swiss rounds and the top cut, not only because of the open deck lists, but of course we are now in 2 out of 3, because we need a definitive winner. We can't just play 2 games and have 1 victory each. How do we progress then, Ross? No, we need a determined winner, and we're going to be going all the way to the finals and see who is going to be crowned the Disney Lorcana Challenge Bochum champion.
And I have absolutely no idea what is going on in terms of what time we're getting out of here today.
Oh, I don't
We could be out of here in a couple of hours. We could be here. Well, actually, I do know what time the hall closes.
Well, I will be here as long as I need to be.
We've got a long time. And here's the thing.
Go on.
We're untimed. We are untimed here. Now, it was weird because they were different. The way you play a 2-game format is different to how you play a best of 3. But in top 64, top 32, top 16, we had a timed best of 3. And there are skills inherent in there. Knowing when to concede when you're losing, playing the clock properly, making sure what you don't want to do is spend a long time in game 1, lose, win game 2, and then be behind and lose game 3. What you should be doing is conceding game 1 earlier, especially if you're playing a slower deck, to give more time for games 2 and game 3. But even that's now out the window. When you get to top 8, top 4 in the final, we are untimed. We will be here as long as it takes.
As long as it takes. There's still plenty of time left throughout the day, as Joe mentioned not too earlier. It's currently just coming to 3 o'clock in Bochum, Germany, so we will have plenty of time to see these games through to their conclusion, and I'm very excited to see who's going to be crowned the champion. We're just going to give it a few more minutes before we move over to our players. But let's take another look at this deck list. So the Ruby Amethyst player, what's your experience with Ruby Amethyst? You said that you're not a fan of slower decks. Have you ever given it a try?
Oh, I've given it a lot of tries. It's a deck I've been testing most in this current format. And see, the thing is, I tend to be a bit impatient as a player. I like playing very aggro.
I noticed at the set championships last season.
Oh, I went full aggro for the set championships, and it was fun. I'm actually rebuilding Ruby Amethyst this weekend to try and make it as aggro as we've had conversations about this. You've been helping me.
We had a lot of conversations across this weekend.
We have talked a lot this weekend, to be fair. But my point is, it's a deck where you can be really rewarded. If you can hang on, when the first couple of turns, Chernobog's Followers, obviously a great kind of turn 1 option. We've got 2 drops like Kuzco and Madam Mim Snake, which are fine, but it's when you get to 4, 5, 6, 7 ink, that is when the deck really starts popping. I want to be up like 10 lore in the first couple of turns, whereas Ruby Amethyst, it is hold on for a couple of turns, keep ticking along, get a couple of lore. Now my Maui's out, now my Be Prepared's out.
I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, now my Mana Medusa is down, and everything you can do, I can counter. Now, it looks like the full bracket has been there. Okay, and we do see there, of course, Ruben and Viatime are actually on opposite sides of the bracket. They will not be playing in top 4. Ruben will be playing against Justin. I was right.
Yeah,
that wasn't Justin.
You were right.
And we've got Viatime against Hadrian, and you know what this means?
What does it mean, Ross?
Top 4 settled. We can properly get rolling here. We don't need to start one game early. We can just start the semi-finals. And, of course, they are untimed. As soon as these two are over, we let the players have a quick break, run to the loo if they need to, grab a quick drink, and then they sit down. Then they play the final. And, well, we could have a Ruby Amethyst final, or we could have 2 different versions of Steel.
Yep, you're absolutely right. It's either going to be Ruby Amethyst mirror match in the final, or it's going to be Ruby Amethyst versus Emerald Steel, or Ruby Amethyst versus Sapphire Steel, or even Emerald Steel. But maybe the Ruby Amethyst decks both get thrown out of the competition at this point in time. We shall see. But yeah, it's really interesting to look at this top 4. 3 of the predicted top 4 decks. I say predicted top 4 decks. The community seems to have a big 4, which is Ruby Amethyst, Ruby Sapphire, Emerald Steel, and Sapphire Steel. Those are 4 of us, the main best decks, and 3 of those making their way into the final 4.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Go
if you're
on,
Justin, everything we said so far, Justin wants to squeak past Ruben and then play against Hadrian.
Yep.
That is the deck you want.
Yep.
If you're Ruben, do you want to play a mirror match against Viatime, or do you want to play Emerald Steel against Hadrian? What is your preferred finals matchup if you get there?
I don't have a lot of experience playing with Sapphire Steel. I've played a lot against it.
I mean, if you're the Ruby Amethyst player...
Oh, I'm the Ruby Amethyst.
Yeah,
sorry,
so
I got your question around the wrong way.
Do you want the mirror match, or do you want Emerald Steel if you're playing Ruby Amethyst? Because I know that's the deck you like playing with.
I'd rather the mirror match, personally, because in the mirror match, I feel like I have a lot more control over the game, and just in the sense that I'm going to be able to play the game, because there is always that possibility when you're up against the dreaded Squirrel, the Squirrel Squeak Tutor, bless his heart, that you might just not get to play the game, Ross, especially if they're able to go turn 2 Bucky, turn 3 Bucky, turn 4 Bucky, and now I'll play a load of Floodborns and I'm going to make you discard all of the cards. Don't get me wrong, Amethyst has a big draw engine, so you try and draw out of it, but I never like the way that feels, because the game plan as a Ruby Amethyst player is you don't play anything unless it draws a card or unless it's removing something like a Diablo. So you might play Brawl, but other than that, I wouldn't play anything unless it was a Chernobox Followers, a Maleficent, a Friends on the other side, or a Merlin Rabbit. When you get to turn 6, you could arguably play the Medusa if there's a good target there, like a Robin Hood, Champion of Sherwood, or something like that. But in my experience as the Ruby Amethyst player playing against Bucky, because I did a lot of testing against Emerald Steel Bucky, a shout out to my secret Lorcana testing group that will go unnamed for helping me out with that, especially to Lorcana Decklists, who played the Bucky matchup into my Ruby Amethyst quite a lot to get me ready for the set championships. And I found that it's all about just getting to that turn 7, be prepared, and then after that you just want to stabilize much better than your opponent and hope that you get more of those draw cards, such as Rabbit into Friends, because Emerald Steel doesn't have a great amount of draw cards. So